It's amazing how resilient you suddenly become.
And you find a way, don't you?
You have no choice. Truthfully, you have no choice. You just have to get through it.
You're listening to Founded and Grounded with Olly Collard and Dr. Becky Sage. The podcast brings you the honest realities of startup life. If you're a founder or aspiring entrepreneur, this is for you. Hello, I'm Dr. Becky Sage, co-host of Founded and Grounded, and I'm here with Ollie to discuss episode 8 of season 6. Hi Ollie, how are you?
I'm fantastic. It's great to be back doing founder stories again. We've taken a bit of a break from the founder stories to focus on our live sister show called The Grounding, but this is our bread and butter and what we know, and it feels great to be back in the studio with you.
Feels so good. When I was listening to do the analysis on the podcast and doing the notes and sending them over to you, I was like, we haven't done this for, I don't know, a year or something.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it feels good. It's really nice to have an episode today, which you'll introduce the guests in a second, but it was a really refreshing episode, I thought. There was something really nice about it. So who are today's entrepreneurs?
Without any further ado then, I spoke to Rhys Jones from The Online Accountant and Olly Ladbrooke from Moose Studios, but they in fact are business partners in another venture called the Bristol Office Hub, which is where we are filming today.
Yeah, it's been a home for us as we've been kind of getting the grounding off the ground, so to speak, and bringing it back down to earth again. And it's been a really nice space to be a part of. So it was lovely to hear their story in the episode this week. Yeah,
and they're just really nice guys. I mean, I met Ollie from our Paddlepreneurs group, and he put a post in there just saying about, he's got a vacancy in the building, and I came and checked it out, and we agreed some terms, and yeah, delighted to be here. And I think what really drew me in was just how genuine and encompassing they were in terms of working and just sharing the wealth. I don't know any way of saying it really, but just being keen to recommend, do business with each other, and they just had a really nice nature about the two of them.
We were just talking beforehand, this idea of community and what that really means, and this sharing and introducing people to one another and actually supporting each other's work is such a beautiful part of community, and perhaps a real respite to some of the other noise that's out there and all the busyness of AI and everything else.
Because I think in the world of business sometimes it can be a bit dog eat dog, but if you're surrounding yourself with great people and people that can add value and introduce you to the right people and build out your network, then it's a really nice space to be in. And I think the word community gets bandied about, and it's a bit of a word that's lost its meaning, really. How would you define it?
Yeah, I think we were just talking before, and we were saying about this idea of community can feel like it needs to be something where you're kind of going out and you're spending lots of time with people, and you're kind of, I don't know, going to events together all the time, and actually I think it's people just caring about one another. I think there's often a local aspect to it, and particularly in this story, that was something that came across really strongly. But that doesn't have to be the case. It can also be around shared interests or other things. But yeah, just valuing one another, like truly valuing one another. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's about, like you say, it doesn't have to be spending that shared time together either, which is sometimes maybe a misconception, but actually of just going, I'm thinking of one thing, whether that's podcasting or personal branding, they're going, oh, you should speak to Ollie. So it's just about having that perception of and that awareness of each other and the pain points of your target customer in mind to make those referrals when it's appropriate to do so.
Yeah. So I think this episode has everything that people might be looking for if they want a rest from thinking about some of that, like the globalization stuff that's going on. There's a war, there's price rises, there's market forces that can be making life difficult. But I think what we heard in this interview was something that really cut through all of that. And so it's the story of two men in Bristol, met on the rugby field. And should we let them tell us the rest?
Let's do it. Good afternoon, Ollie. Good afternoon, Rhys. How are you both doing?
Really good, thank you.
Yeah, good, thanks, mate.
Awesome. Well, here we are, White Ladies Road. I'm a new tenant to the building. Thank you very much, firstly, for making me feel welcome.
No problems, not at all.
Pleasure.
Can you just tell me a bit more about the Bristol Office Hub?
Yeah, the Bristol Office Hub started in 2020, I think.
Yeah.
We bought this building. It's on White Ladies Road, just at the top. We created it as a kind of serviced office offering, which does everything from registered business addresses, virtual offices, up to 2, 4, 6-man kind of office suites. And then has evolved in 2023. We've got a couple of other buildings next door which have traditional leases to companies.
Awesome. And I got to ask, how did you guys meet each other?
Sadly, on a rugby pitch. We both play at Old Bristolians Rugby Club, or we did play. It's very well known for champagne rugby. Rhys was more the rugby. I was probably more the champagne. But yeah, through the rugby club.
And when you say sadly, because you're no longer playing, or what?
Age.
We both gave up a long time ago.
Yeah. Age catches up with you very quickly.
Yeah. And how did you go from knowing each other on the rugby pitch to forming a friendship, a bond, to actually trusting one another to go into business together?
Well, it all happened at the same time. That when I left my job to go self-employed, set up as an accountant, and I think it was roughly the same time as all set up. Yeah. And then I think it was just the link of, I need an accountant, Rhys, can you help? And then we just sort of went from there, didn't we?
Pretty much, yeah. I was basically the first guinea pig for his business.
and he stayed with me as well.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I haven't been able to get away. He's trapped me ever since. But no, it just worked out really well. It's just, solid advice from accountancy. And then from there, that was the normal day-to-day business. And then we kind of both shared the same ideas of property and managed to make it work, really.
Yeah, because I think I had some clients. I was sitting in their office, and it was all fine. And we just caught up one day, and I said, I really want my own place, and you wanted your own place. And then luckily this came up, and it all sort of fell into place. So very lucky. Yeah.
So timing was obviously, the stars were aligned in terms of the timing of it all.
Kind of, but it's right in COVID when no one else was buying. So
Good time to buy then.
It was what I mean. Yeah, my background is property, so it kind of worked in that and property marketing now. And it just, we both talked about it. It was a real kind of dream to kind of just get into commercial property, especially. And from our personal point of view, it would be great to have our own spaces and then, generate income from another part of it. And this building offered itself to us. It was really good. Prime location at top of White Ladies Road. And to be honest, we never looked back. And
talking about your background there, so chartered surveyor, BNP Paribas, and then you obviously founded your own business outside of this partnership. Called Moose Studios. Can you tell us a bit more about what you do there?
Yeah, Moose Studios is a graphic and design agency. We've been going since 2020, so literally the month before COVID and everyone got locked down, which was an interesting time. We set it up, been going great guns. We've got a Bristol office and a London office. Work very much the hybrid system with people all around the country and in another country. And essentially, we do graphic and design-based work nationally, based on property, to be honest. And
Rhys, your background, obviously, in accountancy, and you've actually got 2 businesses, haven't you, aside from the Bristol Office Hub. So can you tell us what those are?
Yeah, so similar to all, I did the whole working for sort of bigger accountancy firms, did my time there, and after a while, I sort of decided I didn't want to boss anymore, so thought of, let's just go for it. So actually with another friend of ours who through the rugby connection, I set up the online accountant with Matt Davis. So we got an office here in Bristol and one in Hereford. And then started out, 0 clients until Ollie came on board as number 1. And then we sort of grown from there. So there's me and Matt, we've got like 6 staff now. And then so we run the online accountant, which is a general tax and accounting business. And then I do a lot of property work. So we also set up the property accountant. And then we've got lots of clients through there as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. And it all happened at the same time then? So you both set up your respective businesses and then this opportunity arose?
Yeah, within probably 6-9 months. I think we bought it at the end of 2020. So that's about right. So, essentially within 12 months, business is set up and this one turned up and we set a new one up. So, it's been quite a journey in that year.
It was obviously scary to do. Still new businesses and buying a premises. But we sort of run the figures and it just felt right. And then, so we were very lucky.
And it's amazing what you can do because we were in lockdown. So essentially no one was going to an office at that point. So to then suddenly say we're going to go buy an office is quite a hard sell, especially to our respective partners as well.
Yeah, what did they say?
Well, it wasn't an easy sell, put it that way.
Well, the good news is Rhys's wife is a surveyor. So thankfully that works out quite well in terms of she could see the potential of the building. And from my side, my wife needed Rhys to convince that the figures were good. So actually, it was a really good actual mutual partnership in that sense that actually we're going to be here anyway. Our businesses were going well at that point and still are. And actually, we could cover it ourselves. The extra people in the building, the extra tenants are just a real win for us. So yeah, it worked out well.
And tell me about the mindset, both coming from kind of corporate employed world into starting your own respective businesses and then becoming essentially serial entrepreneurs at the same time and running multiple businesses. Like, what's the biggest kind of mindset switch that you've had to make?
That's a great question. I mean, I was just in the corporate environment for years and slowly hated it year on year on year. And so I was ready to make the move to start my own business and do what I wanted to do, not what someone else was basically saying to do. It wasn't scary from that point of view. It was scary having 0 clients, but you've just got to get out there and do your best to attract them and do everything you can to build and build and build. So again, just very lucky that I had great support networks help me do that.
So freedom was the kind of overarching.
It was 100% freedom. Yeah.
And for you, Ollie?
So mine was a bit different. So I started, as you mentioned, BNP Paribas, and then in 2009, I think it was when the market absolutely tanked, I then left there and was part of setting up another business that I ran their Bristol office, but they had a London team. Okay. So I was almost the Bristol satellite head of office type thing. Ran that for probably near 10 years. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, the business partner was kind of retiring. And I looked at it and thought, well, he's done really well. I feel like I can do that myself now. And actually, it kind of became a natural move. So I kind of didn't have the shock full corporate to full self-employed, but had a good bit in between. And just it was a natural transition for me. So in that sense, but enjoyed all of it.
So can you take me back to that conversation when you obviously saw that the property was available? Who said what to who? How did it play out?
Well, he's the salesman. He found it. He brought it to me. And then, to be honest, I didn't need much convincing.
Pretty much was that. It was because we were both, we'd probably been looking for probably 3 to 6 months by that time. It was another lad at the rugby club who introduced the building to us, who is a commercial agent. He gave it to us and basically went, look, this is a really good building. You just got to do a little bit of work to it, which was, we call it light touch. So it's more painting, decorating and a bit of, staircase movement, not redeveloping.
Sure.
And we just felt like it was really, location sells itself. Top of Whiteley's Road, Bristol, really solid outlook. The real question that everyone has to ask is, can you afford it? And I didn't know if we could. Or we could. So it was one of those of lean over to Rhys and, can we actually do this? And, thankfully we can. Yeah.
Yeah. And it started with the one building, but then you kind of expanded that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So this building was the first one. Did really well. Got it fully let within probably 3 months.
Yeah, because that's the scary bit with commercials, obviously finding the tenants. And so with like residential, for example, you could find someone straight away. Yeah. Takes a lot longer to find them, but we were quite lucky that someone came along. Well, 2 lot of people came along straight away, basically. So it takes that pressure off immediately of can we afford it and cash flow basically. We filled it pretty quickly, and then you obviously had the great idea to do the registered office addresses here, which we do as well. So people just sign up, put their company here as their address, brings in a separate revenue stream for us. Again, so it's all good.
Following that in 2023. The next door neighbour basically knocked on the door, if I'm being honest, and they realised that they had a quite a big roof problem, and to access and change it, they had to cause us a roof problem for the scaffold because of the weight of the scaffold's like 4 ton, which meant a bit of works to our building. And actually, as we were discussing it, we realised that they really didn't want to do the works, and we were sitting here going, "Life's, is this giving us a challenge?" Interestingly, on the room next door, we were given a photo of this building and the next door building from like early 1900s, isn't it? I think and it just shows the 2 buildings together, and it's almost like, actually, is this telling us we should be having this? And we kind of worked it out with the agents and the landlord there, and kind of all fell into place. It took a long time to get that deal over the line, probably 9 months, I think, in the end, which is a long time. But that was down to finance issues, which we'll chat about at some point. But it was just really worked out well, and we finally got hold of it and did a lot more of a refurb, which was quite eye-opening for us.
And the plan there was to do a room by room there. So next door, they've got like 10 separate rooms. So it was a natural way for us to expand and like let it room by room. But in the end, we had another firm came in and just said, no, we want the whole building. So
Okay.
we had that sort of discussion of like, should we just let the whole building or do it room by room? And in the end, we just let the whole building basically.
And talk to me a bit about some of the types of companies that are coming to use the space in this building. So there are obviously companies that maybe have been working out of bedrooms or spare rooms or want to expand into office space. What's that first step that they have to do to try and change their business?
Changing the business is an interesting one. Actually, if you look at the tenants that we have, they're actually satellites. Okay. So their head office is London-based. Mm-hmm. And then there's 2 or 3 kind of partners, as you'd say, located in the Bristol area. And they go, we just need a kind of central hub. They're not always in 5 days a week. They're not in 9 till 5, but they need a place to call their own. Mm-hmm. And be able to lock the door is probably the better way, and leave computers in places or things like that. So the satellite move has been really good for us, and interestingly for us when we talked about getting that let quite quickly, we used our lawyers. We'll give them a shout out, Jury O'Shea, and in the process of buying this building, they went, we need an office. So it was one of those natural conversations. Went, oh well, we've bought this building and you've just done the legals on it. Do you want to come and look at it? And they had first dibs on whichever space they wanted, and that deal was done before the paint had really dried, if I'm being honest. Other spaces that we've let, they are 1-person, 2-person bands that I've just set up, probably just need a space to not be in their kitchen, actually, is a real thing, and actually almost feel a bit grown up. So we talked to a friend of ours as well, who was like, I'd just like to come in and actually put on office clothes rather than, sit in his sports shorts and a t-shirt and try and do things. And actually that feeling of just being part of a team again, it's really what drove that. So
and our model is just very simple of like, we just include everything in the fee. Okay. So we don't, with other serviced office accommodation, they are, this is extra. We just wanted to keep it simple, more for ourselves mainly, of like, use the room, everything's included.
Yeah.
Month notice, happy days, and that's just what people want, is just simplicity.
Yeah, the flexibility is key for us. Is when you talk to everyone who comes here, it's the fact that they're not tied down to leases 6 months. You don't know where your business is going to be in 6 months, and not many will, even though they're established. It's a very interesting kind of setup. So to go from here to going to a larger space and being tied down for 5-year and a 3-year break, that's quite a big jump. And certainly from that, setting up a company going, should we sign a rolling 6-month notice? You feel a bit trapped from it. So what we've kind of established is we're happy to be flexible. We throw everything in. We've got a gigabyte a second internet here, which is obviously your experience with the podcast. We're putting all the best things we can put in. We're not a giant like some of the Regis, the Blocks, the kind of desk lodges of the world that are fabulous spaces in Bristol and around. They offer a very different package to what we do. We're probably more that kind of plain Jane, this is what you get. It is what it is on a tin, kind of that kind of setup, right? Versus you're not getting people paying for a day. They can buy a pass for 10 days a month, and it's quite transient. I think here is, it's quite good. Everyone who walks in the building, and the best part about it is we've done business with everyone, including yourself, in our building, which is even better. So it's a really good cross-selling and collaboration with people. And that's quite kind of our mantra as well, is if we can help, we will.
A word about our sponsors.
So Becky, I started my first business back in 2018, and then in 2019 my son came along, and then in 2020 my daughter as well. So I've never known life as a founder not being a parent.
This is why you've always been so deliberate about doing the 4-day working week, right?
Yeah, so I started it obviously before they were at school, so every Thursday I used to look after both of them, and then now they're both of school age, it means that I get a bit of time back, apart from obviously the holidays when it's half term and summer holidays, etc., where I do a day with them both. So it got me thinking about why I do what I do, and ultimately it's about having that freedom and being able to spend time with the people that I care about the most.
And our sponsor sits right in that space.
It does. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, and it's all online. You can quote in seconds and apply in as little as 10 minutes. No medical exam, just a few questions online, up to 3 million in coverage. Some policies start as low as $30 a month. So take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/founded. That is ethos.com/founded. Application times may vary, rates may vary.
Who would have thought that property would be the way to go starting in 2020? It's so interesting because I was looking at the market data in the Bristol commercial property market, and it was saying it's only just starting to pick up now. And yet they've kind of built this whole new business off the back of it.
I know, it's definitely a time when it was make or break, and you would have thought it would be the latter, but it's obviously galvanised them and they doubled down on their strategy. So, hats off to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's allowed them to survive is because they've got these multiple businesses between them. And it got me thinking about, we've heard of the portfolio career, and this was like a portfolio of businesses. And that's something that maybe you hear of in terms of kind of some big investors who might invest in a portfolio of businesses, or, you know, the big businesses where there's multiple brands that sit under them, or the big tech billionaires who have multiple companies. But we don't really think about that in the day-to-day, but we don't really think about that in terms of everyday entrepreneurs. And I guess we maybe would advise against it in some ways, because how much focus can you put on each business? And perhaps that's why more people don't do it. But I just thought how brilliant in terms of having multiple revenue streams and having resilience. And also, we mentioned community at the beginning. If you've got all these different businesses, it's also forming this community.
I think it means if there's one aspect that takes out a certain element of a business, then they've got these other businesses to rely on. So in a way, it is building up that bank of power between the businesses. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs probably only focus on one business at a time.
I think it was also clear that they've both got very, different personalities, and yet they exist within that same ecosystem, the same community. And like you said, there's that sharing going on. And so I think that that's also quite interesting and quite helpful, that you can come together with somebody who maybe thinks differently or can add something in a different way. And that maybe helps you in both your businesses, not just the one that you're doing together.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of co-founder divorces over the years, and it often comes down to if they're trying to compete with one another, and there's a lot of shared areas of expertise. I think if you are complementary and you bring different things to the party, then ultimately you're going to focus on different bits, and naturally there's going to be some crossover. And you do have to have that trust in that other person to be able to let them get on with it. But I think if you're competing, then you're going to be in a losing battle.
Yeah. So I think it was also interesting when you're talking about mindset, going from corporate to entrepreneur, and how they actually both had quite a different journey. And perhaps the fact that Ollie had been through something and has been in more of a kind of entrepreneurial business environment, has been brand building for that period of time, whereas Rhys had been used to being in a corporate, but didn't want somebody else to be his boss anymore. Like that idea of wanting to be your own boss and being able to just come together and maybe figure that out alongside somebody else who's had a bit more experience of that was probably really helpful.
I think it's a great story, isn't it? And I think that they already had that friendship and trust that they built up on the rugby field. So I think that has fast-tracked the relationship to be able to go into business together. But it is interesting where you find your co-founders and how you meet people and how you build partnerships and collaboration, or, in this case, obviously formal business partners together.
It's the biggest unsolved problem, I think, in the ecosystems that I exist within. I work a lot with tech founders, spin out businesses, or like very technical founders who haven't necessarily had some commercial experience. And that can be incredibly tricky to find that person. People know they need it, but where are they? And it's, like I said, I think it's still not been solved, certainly within that ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because it has to be a bit more specialist, but yeah.
And I think as well with more technically minded founders, like they often have got people in their network who are kind of quite similar and quite like-minded and quite technical. And then they often then don't get those complementary skills between one another because they're so alike. So I think that's a problem. And I think, some programs like accelerator programs do that matching of founders. And I think that can be quite valuable. But essentially, I think, entrepreneurship is a game of really increasing opportunities and finding those serendipitous moments to meet people. And the more you're putting yourself out there, the more chances are that you're going to find that right person.
Yeah, that's something I'm thinking about within my own work in terms of how to support people. It's like, how do you engineer that serendipity a little bit more? And that's not a new term. That's what people have been trying to do for a long time, and it's difficult to do it in a way that doesn't feel contrived. But I think the more you can get people out of their bedrooms or out of and into maybe some shared spaces, that's one way to do it. And I think we all forgot how to do that for a while after COVID. So definitely thinking, re-emerge into the world, and maybe it is through your interests, through your hobbies, you might actually find those people. It doesn't have to be like going to an event about the thing you're building.
That's the thing. I think just taking a bit of a level-headedness about it and thinking, well, I can meet this person anywhere. It could be in the supermarket, it could be on a train, it could be at an event that we're both interested about a particular topic. It doesn't have to be one thing.
No, I don't think it does. I don't think it works in dating either, though, right?
Couldn't comment on that.
Although I wouldn't know. Yeah, I was going to say I've never been on a dating app. And actually, again, coming back to, you might be nurturing those relationships with people who aren't the person who's going to be your co-founder, but actually by being in community, you potentially, I'm saying that community word again, but you potentially come across somebody who knows somebody, and it just widens out that network further. And it doesn't have to be about like you said, anything that's particularly contrived or specifically networky. It's just like, get out there in the world and live your life.
And I do think like doing things which are where you've had that shared lived experience of doing something with somebody, like those are the moments where you get to know somebody better and you've got that mutual point of interest, and you don't know where that's going to go. I think I always go back to one of the episodes on Founded and Grounded with Superbooks, and one of the co-founders there basically said that all it takes is one conversation. And I've seen this play out multiple times, that you're only one conversation away from everything changing. And the more you're putting yourself out there, the more serendipitous moments that you're creating, then the more likely it is that you're going to get to where you want to get to.
That's why we're sitting here right now.
There we go.
I wouldn't have joined Founded and Grounded if it wasn't for somebody else that we both knew. And even though we knew each other already, this probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that mutual connection. So that's just one of millions of examples of how this actually happens.
It's so true, because we kind of knew each other, but it wasn't until somebody said that suggestion of why don't you speak to Becky?
Yeah.
And then within a couple of weeks we were up and running and publishing the podcast again. And still doing it to this day. So like you say, it's about having that network and those people that you can rely on to be able to do more than you can by yourself.
Yeah. And I think what came across, and perhaps this is because of how they found each other, is that there was such an ease. And I guess it goes back to your point of there's not a competition between them. There's complementary skills. And it just felt like they hadn't even had to really think about it. That it was just like, this is just what we do. This is how we do it. And it's working.
And it was like you say, I think it came across that it's quite natural, that relationship, and doesn't have to be codified. Like, these are my roles and responsibilities. Like it was just an ingrained kind of way of working together, which works.
Yeah. But of course, as with all businesses, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. There have been some more challenging moments as well, which we're going to hear about in part 2, along with how they have remained supportive while juggling multiple businesses.
I want to know about the split between you guys in terms of the partnership and what you guys do day to day within the business. I mean, there's lots to it in terms of being a landlord, a community manager, facilities operator, marketeer, salesperson, accountancy. Like, how do you split the roles between yourselves?
We've just fallen sort of naturally into those roles. I'm on site every day, so like if there's stuff that needs to be doing, mainly DIY actually, I might end up doing it.
He's our really highly paid facilities manager.
Yeah, but then Ollie's amazing on the marketing, so things like the website and getting the new people in here for the new tenants or the registered office addresses. He's brilliant at that basically, and then I can sort of do the do the account side as well. So yeah, it's just fitted together nicely, but we keep it simple so it doesn't take up loads of time, because obviously we've got our businesses on which take up the majority of the time. The accountancy and the marketing, they're the ones which take up a lot of time.
We're playing to our strengths, really. Marketing and sales is absolutely my strength. Easy for me to do it. Accountancy is very niche, and it helps that Rhys is there to just be right on tap. It's also a service we offer to everyone. So if there's a new company coming in, you have got someone that can do the branding, the naming, anything like that, and you've also got the account side. So it's a real kind of extra for this building. In terms of our running of the space, we've got it to a point now where it's pretty self-run. You do have naturally problems where something goes wrong with the building, or the power goes out when we have to be on. It's great. Rhys is on site more than me. I'm more on other clients' sites quite regularly. We just do what we do. We've got a pretty good system, and you just have to cover each other when you're on holiday, if that makes sense. It kind of works pretty naturally.
Works out. And in terms of obviously that's a functional split between you in terms of responsibilities and roles, but in terms of personalities, and is there a split between maybe one who's more kind of big picture person, one who's more analytical? What's the dynamic for that?
We've got the salesman there.
One of us has to wear the stash, the other one is the character. That's generally how I see it. I think that's doing an injustice actually to both of us. In fairness to Rhys, if I wasn't here, he'd be very capable of all of it.
Yeah.
Whereas I can definitely tell you I couldn't do the accountancy side of it. We are playing to our strength in those moments, and to be honest, there's no point me trying to do the accountancy when he's right there, and vice versa. He doesn't need to do the property stuff when I'm not here. It's just been a natural move, and to be fair, we always talk it through. We kind of sit down, we have a good catch up quite regularly, and where we need to make a decision, it's not one or the other. Is this right? Yeah, it is. But we haven't had any hard decisions. The hardest decision is really, are we going to commit to it? Yes or no?
Yeah, I want to talk about, you said there, moments. So I want to go into some of the moments where things have been a bit more challenging, or you've kind of questioned things. Obviously, it seems that it's worked out in terms of the timing and you've doubled down on your strategy. But tell me about any sort of hairy moments within the business.
Well, that's probably when we bought the second building, because we were going from our one, nice building here, all going well, happy days, and then that opportunity come up. And it would have been easy for us to say, no, it's too much. But we sort of played it back and forward, didn't we? And then went through the figures, and it was a risk at the end of the day. It was actually a very big risk. And so we took the decision to buy it, a big mortgage on it, basically on the basis that we could cover the mortgage and cover the payments. And then probably the hairiest moment we had was when we had to do some work on it, and then we had it valued for mortgage purposes, and we got down valued by about 100 grand.
Wow.
So we were relying on that money, weren't we, to do the works, and then suddenly that money's not there anymore, and then we've got to scrape around and beg, borrow, steal to fund it ourselves, basically.
Yeah, so it was a bit of catch-22. You've now got the asset, but what we originally had kind of agreed in terms of the mortgage was it was chaotic in the last kind of couple of weeks, and they just basically just went no, and the valuation, I won't go too much into it, but it just didn't stack up either side, and unfortunately they just didn't listen to our side in that motion. So we lost out on that, and then suddenly realised you've got a building, but the building can't rent because the roof is leaking. We had to just figure it out, and actually when you take indecision out of it, it made it easier for us, other than financially it's brutal. And that financial implication is still hitting us for 3 solid years, and we'll hopefully, touch wood, come November when our bank finance is up, we can renegotiate or look at a different rate, and hopefully it'll be a lot better than what it is at the minute, which would be good. But yeah, it was a scary moment where you've plunged yourself in, and you're definitely in the deep end. It's amazing how resilient you suddenly become.
And you find a way, don't you?
Yeah, you have no choice. Truthfully, you have no choice. You just have to, get through it. But getting through that, the only way we manage that is both of us have done successful in other businesses that you could find ways. I don't think we would have had such a great run if that was our first building. I doubt we'd have been financed if that was our first building anyway. But the difference between the two is quite stark. But because we had this one, it was running like a dream, and still is. It gave us the confidence, and certainly allowed us to kind of lean back on it and work well through it. But yeah, in that motion, it was a bit nervy.
And you've got, two respective flourishing businesses, obviously this joint venture between you. On paper, that all sounds great, but tell me about who supports you outside of running a business and keeps you grounded and, keeps you firing on all cylinders. Who supports you?
Immediately, it's family for me. Wife, 2 kids, couldn't do it without them. They're my champions, actually. They champion me every time. I spoke to you about doing a pitch this week. They're all there supportive, going, yes, please, let's get it. Go and try and win that, and you give it your best. As you say to your kids, try your best. And it is that is what it is. Interesting you say grounded. We've had a couple of good years where we flew, but because I'm the accountant is in my building, he keeps me grounded by going, don't do that. So there's a level of, it's a mutual appreciation. He hasn't allowed me to fly off the hook or do anything else. But the family and friends aspect is huge. And certainly just each other is a great option, because we are happy to talk it. We're happy to tell the bad days. We're happy to tell the good days. But you can't just...
And it's funny, because I remember when we went to buy this building, I said to you, well, I forget the exact figures, but you could have bought it on your own potentially. And I said, why don't you go and buy this on your own? And he said to me, basically, well, it's just more fun if there's 2 of us, isn't there? And it was that. And it was, when I first tried to go on my own after leaving my job, I found it a real struggle. And then I found out pretty quickly that I needed a business partner. And so my other friend, Matt, who I now run the accountancy with, he's my business partner, and it's so much fun having someone there basically to help you. So I've got Matt in that business, I've got Ollie in this business, and you have ups and downs, whatever, but it's just still a lot of fun the other day having someone there to help you.
So I want to talk about the kind of startup mindset of like going out on your own. You talked there about the isolation of, going solo as a business owner, which is a big issue for lots of founders. How do you surround yourself with good people? Obviously, you've done that quite naturally yourselves, but how do you build your network and look for business partners and create opportunities?
Yeah, well, actually, from my point of view, because I went basically 0 clients as on my own, the only advice I'd give or what worked for me is basically action. When I went on my own, I basically got a list of people I needed to speak to for potential introducers and then like financial advisors. And I went to someone like every day for almost a month. People I didn't know rang up out of the blue. And then what I found was, A, everyone's really helpful. And if you tell them you've got a new business, they want to help you. Yeah. And then B, nearly everyone I spoke to, like the following week or the following month, it'd given me business. And it opened my eyes. I couldn't believe it that would happen. So throughout the business now, this 5 years, we've done the accountancy, action all the time. We just make sure that we're doing stuff and approaching people, and it just seems to work.
So I would probably counter that directly and just say my kind of setup of business is very different from a marketing point of view. The moment you are a brand new agency, actually they'd probably say you're inexperienced, you don't have the skill set. It's a very hard battle to prove your worth at that point. So yes, we went to clients that you knew and all those processes, but the actual timescale of picking those up is truthfully 9, 12, 18 months rather than day one. But yeah, it's exactly that mantra. That the mindset that I had was, if you don't put anything in, you're not going to get paid. So the moment you realise you're not going to get paid, it's a quick mindset to go, right, this is a wolf's going to be at the door very quickly moment, or you've got to make something happen. And for me, it was, thankfully, we made stuff happen.
So I'm keen to hear from each of you about an honest mistake that you've made and learnt the hard way in business, or a moment where you've realised that you've been sacrificing something either consciously or subconsciously.
Oh, that's a great one. Honest mistake. Truthfully, I would probably say that I have said yes to some things in terms of work that are not valued at the right prices for us. But on a couple of occasions, you want to do that to prove your worth. And then actually after a while, we've said yes to a couple of others and, you haven't made any money out of it. And that's a learning curve. It's an education. It's how you manage the client's expectations. That's probably the more knowledge and experience versus actually a mistake.
Yeah, so mine, it's not actually a mistake. It's sort of like, it's an ongoing battle I have, basically, because when you set the business up, A, you just want to get it up and running and know you can sort of run a business. And then B, it's sort of like, I just wanted it's not a lifestyle business, but I did want it to just be not massive, not turn into a big corporate firm, which I basically left. And so we've obviously grown over the years. Now we've got 6 staff, but it's still a little firm, if you like. But my issue is I don't say no to anything. And so I keep, growing and growing and growing. But on the flip side, I don't want to grow too big. So I've got this constant battle, basically, of maybe not clear targets or where the direction. So that's, for me, is part of something I've got to sort of grow with and learn as I keep going, basically, yeah.
What's the ceiling limit, do you think? What in terms of staff?
I honestly, I don't know if it's staff, I don't know if it's turnover, I don't know, just time. I haven't got there yet, basically, but it's something that I think about a lot, yeah.
You'll know when you get there, though.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit awkward when he has to knock on my door and go, I'm letting you go as a client. I'm waiting for that to come through as a client. Cheers, mate. Yeah, I was there day one, but clearly not going to be there at the end.
As we were just saying as we came into this part of the interview, I'm amazed by how easy they are with each other. And they don't really have to think about their personalities and how they balance, because it just seems to work. And I think it is because of this like clear expertise, and also the fact that because they've got these other businesses, it almost feels like that takes the pressure off when they then come back together to work on this. And yeah, what did you think about that?
That's a really interesting point, actually. I think the fact that, as you say, it's not, well, it is their main bread and butter, but it's not. It's like they've got these other separate businesses that they're running and that focused on as well. So I think in a way that takes the pressure off this shared business.
Yeah.
And it allows it to build quite naturally and organically, and they're aligned in terms of their goals for it, that actually, they don't have that pressure on it to go really hard at it.
I honestly think with some of the founders I work with, like there's almost, it's the overthinking, right? It's the rumination. It's the things that then get them really, really stressed. And that becomes almost self-sabotage in a business. So the idea that you've kind of got these separate entities, and when you come back together with this person, you're just focusing on this one thing, and it maybe takes you away from those other things, feels like it could be really healthy.
Yeah, and I think as well, like the capacity of the buildings, like the next door building's completely rented. They've got max capacity in the building that we're in now. And I think that they're doing the virtual business addresses. So I think they've got about 170, 180 businesses under that. And that's obviously continuing to grow. So I think they're kind of relaxed.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in a position of being relaxed in business is when you probably operate your best, because you're not under pressure. Obviously there's a risk of maybe becoming a bit too relaxed, but I think then you're operating in your zone of genius when you're in a state of calm, not in a state of anxiety and flight or flight. And it's, you're being able to focus on what you're good at.
Exactly. I'm such a firm believer in that. The idea of like that you need to be hungry, or you need to be pushing, or you need to be anxious about everything, because otherwise why would you do anything? I just think that's such a fallacy, and we've seen it time and time again. Yeah, those people who've managed to find that space, that calm, that groundedness, they're able to build from that. And honestly, listening to them, you wouldn't know that they've kind of done as much as they've done, that they've got these businesses that are just kind of running themselves pretty much. Yes, they've got to do a bit of work, but there's so much going on that they haven't got to worry about too much. One of the things I thought was really interesting is when you were talking about networking and reaching out to people, and they both had totally different approaches. And I felt like this was such an indicator of how they work together and who they both are, because despite the fact their approaches were very different, they were both very pragmatic approaches. And so one of them was like, yeah, you write a list and then you reach out to them. And then the other was like, no, you need to prove your worth first. So I think that was, Ollie on the marketing side. Like you can't just go out there and expect people to want to talk to you if you haven't got something to show them, versus Rhys, like, yeah, I'm just going to go and start talking to people and reach out to them. So do you think that, they both have their own practical approaches, but they're both very different, is also another part of their success? I
think it is. And I think you've got to be comfortable in your own approach. Like the way in which you do things is probably heavily linked to your personality, and we're all wildly different, aren't we? So I think you're born with certain traits and characteristics for a reason. And I think if you're trusting of one another and you realize that there's multiple ways to skin a cat, then then you're going to get the results that you're going to get, which clearly they're seeing through the Bristol Office Hub, but also their own respective businesses.
Yeah, it's a really good argument for not micromanaging everything as well, right? It's like you don't need to always say how something's going to get done if you're clear about what it is that you want to get done, and then allow people to do that in a way. If
you're clear on where you need to get to, which they are, like any method of transport by any means necessary, depending on your budget, time frame, mode of transport, you just make it work. So I think that's the same in business. Like if you're clear on where you want to get to, there are multiple ways of getting there. And if you're a bit more relaxed about it, then you can make it happen.
One thing that was interesting listening to them is that they were talking about not necessarily having clear targets, but also not saying yes to everything and kind of figuring it out as they go. So I thought that was also really interesting, that they must match quite well together, because I think I would be a little bit uncomfortable with that if my co-founder was like super laissez-faire and you're like, well, what are the goals, what are the targets? I'm not suggesting that they are super laissez-faire on that, but so when you were kind of talking to them, did you get that sense of how do they keep moving in the same direction? How do they know their goals? Is it because they keep it relatively simple, or
I think they intuitively know each other quite well. They see a lot of each other, and they have those sort of unwritten rules between them. So I think that's probably the way that they manage it. And I think although they're maybe not being that explicit about what the clear things are along the journey, like if they ask each other, they would know, and they probably agree on what those things were. In a way, I think that takes the pressure off. And I'd say, speaking to a lot of founders over the years, like a lot of founders aren't content. They're chasing something and they're not enjoying that journey. And I know it's way easier said than done, because I've been guilty of it multiple times. I sometimes have to relearn that lesson. But you're going to operate more at your best when you are happy, you are content. The definition of happiness is like being able to realize your progress over time. And if you can see and feel and taste that progress, then you're going to be more content.
I had to reframe my thinking on some of this as well, because I realized that part of me being happy is working towards things that don't exist yet. It is creating something, it is having goals, it is having, looking for some of those achievements and working towards them. And so you kind of have to realize that maybe you could look at that as a sense of dissatisfaction in terms of where you are right now. But I actually realized over time that I was like, oh no, this is me, and this is me feeling good, and this is me feeling at my best. And I'm not actually dissatisfied with where I am right now. I need those goals to work towards to feel really good about where I am right now. And, I've had almost arguments with people over this kind of thing, because I think some people see that as always reaching for something else. And I'm like, no, that's the way I frame my happiness right now.
That's amazing that you've had that realization, though, because a lot of people may not be able to articulate that and then be in a place of discomfort and not being happy.
Yeah, and you feel like you're not good enough because you're kind of needing something else, and you're like, actually, this is what it means to be ambitious. And like, ambitious isn't a bad thing, creative isn't a bad thing, innovative and wanting to build things, wanting to build businesses and wanting to create something that isn't here right now. So it's definitely a reframing that I've done for myself.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Sometimes I get annoyed at myself for being ambitious, and then you get frustrated with where not where you are or where you want to be, but actually being okay with that is the best thing to do in that situation.
Yeah, and obviously it's easy to feel that way when you're dealing with things that are very kind of quantitative metrics, and I think we often are maybe in the spaces that we're in. It's like, how much money is there coming in? How many views are there on something? How, like that kind of stuff. All of these metrics that you can feel like, God, it takes so long to move the needle on this thing.
And who's going to bloody care about those when
Nobody
on your
cares.
gravestone? Like, you're not
Yeah.
going to have those metrics on there, are you?
I was also thinking about, Rhys was talking about keeping growing and growing and growing. And I loved it when they were like, oh, I might let Ollie go as a client. Like, that would be a good sign of success in 10 years' time. How much do you think, when we think about this, also this idea of growing and not necessarily having a specific framework around that, but knowing you want to kind of keep expanding, how much of that needs to be in a framework? How much do we need to be thinking ahead on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think if you're not growing, to some extent, you are dying a bit. So I think there is a need for growth. I think it depends on how you measure it. Like, what is your metric? What are your KPIs? Like, how are you measuring that growth? And if you're clear on that and you've put targets in place and you're working towards it, then yeah, I think that's all you need to do. I think sometimes it can be overcomplicated. I think you should have, 1, 2 or 3 metrics that you're measuring, and then that's it.
It's one of the things I often ask early on when I'm talking to founders. I mean, I'll always ask them about what it is they're trying to build. And of course, I'm almost always working with founders who are building something that doesn't exist yet. So there is a degree of like having to have a roadmap to get somewhere. They often are companies that will need investment to get to where they're going. So they have to be able to articulate that bigger vision. And some people, that's very easy. And some people, they really struggle with that. And actually, what ends up happening sometimes with those who aren't able to kind of articulate that vision and then work back, which again, like you said, for me, I always say to them, do 3 phases, or at most talk about 5 phases to get to that big vision. And that's a way of like simplifying it and breaking it down. And each one of those phases is obviously going to have its own sets of goals and milestones that you need to hit. But then you're going to be much better at communicating, which is also important, right? To be able to communicate that to others.
And also seeing where you are for your own sanity. Because sometimes particularly if you're doing something very innovative and it's not out there, as you say, in the world yet, then it can become very overwhelming. But if you're breaking it down to those 3 or 5 stages and going, actually, it's fine.
It's definitely something that can be difficult. And people will say things like, well, we don't know, how the world's going to change, and how do you set those goals when the world is going to change? And it's like, again, I think that's why the phasing can be quite helpful, because, well, you know what, you at least get yourself to this phase. Maybe the world has changed. Maybe competitors have entered the market. Maybe you're not going to get any investment for that kind of thing, but maybe you've developed something that you saw as important and you could convince some other people to see as important, and you've evolved something. Maybe you've evolved the technology. Maybe you've improved your skills and the skills of the people around you, so they can now go and be part of a wider ecosystem or something, so
it's so true. And I think as well, like, if you had to put a number on how many startups as a percentage have thought the business was A and then pivoted to B, I would say it's 98% of
at
businesses.
Least. Yeah. I honestly, I think we always say this thing of like, your business plan doesn't survive like hitting the market, right? That like no business plan survives it. And I think that's the case. And again, I think from a point of view of being able to be resilient, actually, if you're too fixed in what you think success looks like, then that can be something that makes you a little bit brittle as well. Right, let's get back to Ollie and Rhys. You asked them about some of their mistakes, and so let's listen in and see what they had to say.
So guys, I'm keen to know a bit about some common mistakes that you see early stage business owners making. So over to you, Ollie.
So the common, not very common, but it happens a few times, is we deal with a lot of new startup firms that come to us. Some needs names, some needs branding. It's a good mix. But if you've agreed that your name is going to be, Moose Studios, likelihood is you've already gone and bought your domain name. So moosestudios.co.uk is ours. The issue is you probably haven't set up your email addresses. So you then go through a process of setting up your email address. It's going to be Oliver at moosestudios.co.uk. You've built a Microsoft 360 package. 12 months down the line, you're rocking and rolling as your business. And then, 13, 14 months, you realise your website's not visually out there. And the reason is you truthfully have not renewed your domain, because those emails go to your probable Hotmail address that you originally set it up with. And truthfully, you'd be surprised at how many of those happen.
Yeah, so obviously we deal with a lot of startups and people coming to us, and the biggest mistake has got to be cash, and it's cash is what I tell all my clients, basically. So when you're first starting up, you've got to make sure that first 12, 24 months, you're building cash in the business. If you don't have that solid foundation at the start, or you don't get the right financials in place, it makes it really difficult later on. And we've got clients, we still got some 5 years later who are running on credit cards and always still chasing their tails or living month by month. And so we say that 2 years is absolutely key to get lots of cash in the business, keep it lean, and then make sure it's building and building and building. Because then, if times go hard, and they do now and again, something will come up like COVID, whatever, you just want to make sure you've got 6-12 months of cash there, and you're not having sleepless nights, and you're not worried about chasing bills, because we see a lot of people, all their energy goes into chasing bills, which should be growing the business, because they're worried about their cash. So it's cash for me. Yeah,
great advice there. And I want to talk a bit about the future of your industries and your businesses. I know AI is having a big impact across all sectors and making big waves, and it's developing every day. A recent example was somebody knocked on the building. I went downstairs and there was a chap that was asking about stamp duty, and he wanted to speak to you, and he showed me, look, I've typed this into ChatGPT and your business came up. So how much do you think AI is going to affect the future of a lot of businesses?
They say that accountancy is one of the first to go, basically, but that hasn't actually been the case, because it's more the creatives that have been taken over. Accountancy is a lot of numbers, so it does lend it that AI will take over at some point. But I'll be honest, at this point, we haven't seen anything that suddenly, next year everyone's going to go. It's not like that. It's, as far as I can tell, there's little steps that have been brought in to make accountants more efficient. And I'm sure that will go to, possibly less and less staff or whatever. I don't really know at this stage. It's coming, but it's slow at this stage.
Yeah, so creatives have definitely been affected in terms of AI. We're actually probably at a stage now where AI, in my world, in terms of property marketing, is definitely used visually. It's used for CGIs. It's used in residential marketing schemes. You're using it for inquiry data, leading inquiries and taking information. I think the issue that AI now has in our world is you're getting to a point where it's so vast and it's so quick that you almost become unbelievable. So you're seeing people going, wow, it's a great visual. Then they'll ask, you'll be on site in a marketing suite for a residential scheme and go, am I going to get this? And it's like, actually, you won't get that perfectly because it's created by AI and not done by an architect with a proper architectural CGI. So, naturally AI is in a lot of the tech that we use. It's in certainly a lot of the data capturing, but it's managing that process, and definitely it will take over in certain parts. But I think ultimately, because it's emotionless as such, there's still that factor that will come through that I think you will be able to manage it.
And where do you want to be in 10 years from now?
10 years from now, truthfully, I'm enjoying life. I'd rather just be staying enjoying life in 10 years' time. It'd be great if the businesses are still running as well as they are. And, if we've expanded Bristol Office Hub, brilliant. If we've not expanded, but we've paid the debt, even better as well. It's as far as happy life, that's my dream.
10 years' time. So mortgage is gone on this place. We've got 2 new buildings. I've got to a position where in the business that I've hopefully stepped back from some of the stuff I don't like doing, and then doing more of the stuff I do like doing, and creating a few more businesses.
Very regiment, isn't he? Suddenly you can just I want this, by this.
You've got to have a 10-year plan.
Yeah, 10-year plan. My God, I'm literally just I just want to have a good time. I want to have a great time. I'm really enjoying it. And I think ultimately, and learn things. This is a new experience for us completely. We laughed earlier about being a little bit archaic in some of these items, and actually doing podcasts. Things like I think it's going to be a great 10 years. But yeah, it's funny that you're this, and I'm like, I'll just what the accountant tells me I can do, we'll do. That's probably it, really.
And Ollie, I know you had a question for our listeners.
Yeah, so we just it's nice to know why people do come to the office if you have been part of a working from home setup. So our question directly is, what is it that convinces you to come into the office? Is it collaboration and cross-selling with other people in the building? Is it the location and lifestyle that our building would offer? Is it the building amenities? We do have that wellness in terms of, bike spaces, showers, Clifton Downs right by us. That's perfect. We obviously then have the option for learning and team catch-ups. Or is it, very truthfully, is it getting you out the house? Please let us know.
Love that. We'll get to answer on that for you on socials as well. Before we go, I want to ask you a difficult question. Based on all of your business knowledge and experience that you've got to date, if you had to distill down just one piece of advice for an early stage founder, what would that be?
Oh, great question. I think for me, it's probably quite a common bit of advice out there. It's not my personal take, but someone said to me, don't ever make a decision or a big decision for your business on a great or a very bad day. So let it sit for a few of those, those stable days. If it still seems right, that's great. If it seems wrong, that's great as well. You've learnt. I think it's very easy to make a decision when you're highly, highly emotive about it. And I think if you just let it calm and it's still great, you're good to go.
Solid advice there, Ollie. And Rhys?
Well, I've already said my cash bit before, so I'll do it slightly different, but it's basic action. So when you first start a business, action is everything. You can write down stuff, you can say I'm going to do things, but actually doing it and going out and doing it solidly, consistently, that's my advice to people.
Awesome. And where can people find out a bit more about the Bristol Office Hub and your respective businesses?
Well, online, the Bristol Office Hub is www.bristolofficehub.co.uk. We are based at 195 to 197 White Ladies Road in Bristol. And then from a personal point of view, Moose Studios, same building, but www.moosestudios.co.uk.
Our website is theonlineaccountant.com. Check out our Google reviews, and then if you want to get in touch, feel free to contact us.
Amazing. Gents, thanks so much for your time.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I don't want to dwell on Ollie's advice too much at the end there, just because I think he said it really well already. Don't ever make a decision on a great day. I've also heard the opposite before, like don't make a decision on a terrible day, and get calm, get grounded, then make the decision. But I think that is really good advice for founders, right?
Yeah, and I think like you can have an instinctive gut decision, sleep on it, and 9 times out of 10 it probably will be the same, and that's also fine, but you don't need to act in that moment.
Yeah, one thing I do know to be true for me personally is that if I'm starting to feel certain stress responses to things, it tends to be that's my spidey senses being like there's something wrong more widely here, like it's not down to that one particular thing, there's something wrong going on, and then just examine that and you can fairly quickly see, this isn't right, there's something that I need to change.
But that takes quite a internal skill to be intuitive, to know that actually, even if you can't put your finger on it, of what that is, like it's a red flag or an alarm bell that's going off somewhere to say that you need to evaluate or review or look at things in a different light. Yeah.
One thing that both Ollie and Rhys sound like they're really good at is taking action. And I think that the biggest thing that I heard from them going through this episode was just, again, I've used the word pragmatism already, but I think it was that. They don't get caught up in, or even things like scaremongering and these big market forces and everything else. They just show up, take action, do the job in their own way, and things move forwards. It's just really great to kind of see that. And it's so simple, right?
It is. And I think business is simple. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. Like when I went on Daniel Priestley's Accelerate back in 2017 or 16, I think it was, like one of the biggest things that I took from it was like 90% of success is just showing up. And then that you can apply that to taking action. It's just being there, being present, making decision, pushing things forward, not overthinking it in your head, because that's when the paralysis ultimately comes from. So take action.
Yeah. And I think that's what we were earlier in the episode talking about really as well, the idea that because they're doing different businesses and maybe there isn't as much of that overthinking and that rumination, because they're just like, well, we just show up and do the thing and it moves things forwards.
And I think Ollie's answer about where he wanted to be in 10 years was just like, continue what I'm doing now. And I love that answer, because it was like, actually, he's not chasing something else of where he wants to be or who he wants to be. It was actually, I'm very happy where I am living in the present right now. And like, how refreshing is that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not always easy to find that, and I think it really takes you designing your life. It was something we talked about on the most recent episode of The Grounding. It's that sense of, can you design it in such a way where you are getting that fulfillment and you are happy in the moment and you are allowing yourself to be where you are right now, and you're still kind of evolving as you're doing that. But the reality is actually you want to maintain that happiness that you've got already. And it's interesting because in some ways I felt like admin came up quite a lot in this episode. But actually, I think that's why the action piece is important. And admin in itself can be the thing that is the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? But if you can just show up and get things done, then you can keep moving forwards. And so the fact that like the things that they were talking about in terms of the mistakes that they'd seen around renewing domains, managing cash, all of this stuff, they are just the things you just need to show up and do. And then the business can keep going. It can keep ticking over and it's okay. Listening to them talk about that really did make me think, oh, hang on a second. Even though a lot of this episode was a cleansing from thinking too much about AI and everything else, this is actually where AI can be really helpful. It's these things that potentially you just don't quite get around to, or these actions that you need to take, where now you've got an assistant who can do that for you, basically, or hold you accountable to it.
I mean, it's great for doing the dirty work that you don't want to do, essentially. Like that's the crux of it. And then we spoke about in the episode, like some of the benefits of how people are discovering your business. So it is changing the way that we find each other online. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with Google. I mean, Google's dominance for decades now in terms of search has been incredible. But I think we're starting to see the breakup of that.
It's interesting because there have been some tools that have specifically been built as a kind of Google competitor, right? Like that search engine, but not, which you could argue any of the LLMs exist in that space, really. But the other thing I've been seeing a lot of is how do you design your marketing for bots versus designing marketing for humans, which like sounds really deadly boring to me. But you can see that, again, it's just in the same way that SEO was always really important. And I mean, the reality is bots have been doing a lot of the searching for us already, right? It's not like this is brand new just because everyone's using LLMs now. But I do think there's going to be a lot of like robot on robot action in the future. So it's like, how do you do things so that, to make sure that you're being found, which in that case it sounds like Rhys was. But then again, I'm like, well, so I don't think he did anything particularly special in order to be found within those LLMs.
No, I think it was like being there on the website, and it categorized it, and it showed up as a search result. But I am seeing this play out on LinkedIn is actually becoming one of the main sources now for whether you want to call it AEO or GEO in terms of search, and it is having a massive weighting on search results. One of our personal branding clients, like one of his prospect customers was having a conversation with him, and like asked him obviously the classic, how did you find me? And he literally said, I did this algorithmic search and you were the second person that came up on an LLM in terms of qualified people. And so I think it is having a massive weighting in terms of discoverability and credibility as well.
Every time we speak, I feel like you're just trying to hold me accountable to making sure I get going on LinkedIn properly.
Come on, Becky. You're great on Instagram.
I know. Next time, by the time I see you next, which will be in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to do 4 LinkedIn posts.
Okay, that's going to be my first question when I see you.
One of the things that I thought was interesting at the end of this chat was again, thinking about resilience, and you talked about AI and how that might be impacting the businesses. And of course, marketing and accountancy would be 2 spaces where we'd be like, if anything's going to get disrupted by AI, like these are already gone, that was the sense. And yet it's not really happening for them yet. And yet I was like, one of the reasons they can be a little bit less stressed about that or not having to worry about that is because they've got this portfolio of businesses, because that's enabled them this resilience or maybe this comfort in terms of where they are. And if they need to pivot in their other businesses or focus more on the property business, they will.
Yeah, I think having like a services business versus a bricks and mortar business and having that distinction between them, I think just enables them to, place less emphasis and hedge their bets and to be able to pivot and move when and if they need to. Like you say, there's lots of scaremongering when we talk about AI, but nobody knows the reality of what we're going to see or how it's going to play out until that happens.
Well, and I also think there's something about almost being under the radar of the macroeconomic trends, because if you're part of a local community, if you're serving that local community, and again, bricks and mortar, everyone needs a place to call home. You know, that's not going to change. I mean, I know there's all sorts of financial things that can go on with that, but that idea that a small business still wants to be here, and we'll come to the question in a second, which brings us nicely onto the question that they posed, which was, what convinces you to come into the office? And the options were collaboration and cross-selling. Number 2 was location and lifestyle. Number 3, building amenities such as bike spaces and showers. Number 4, learning and team catch-ups. And number 5 was just plain old getting you out of the house. So make sure you head over to LinkedIn to answer that question. We really want to hear from you and find out whether or not you're actually in an office. Are you getting out of your home in order to do your work? I think most people, or a lot of people, seem to be now. Ollie, what are people saying about our last episode?
Well, that's a really interesting question posed by Jordan, manager of the Sidemen. And he wanted to know what is the most important skill in business. And he gave the answer that it's self-awareness. And if I'm being honest, like, business is a massive journey. You learn so much about yourself. And if you have a level of self-awareness, which is second to none, is intuitive, you will make better decisions, work with more people, and you will push your business forward. So I would absolutely agree with that. I don't know what your thoughts on it are.
It's actually the answer I always give. So it's really interesting when I was listening to this. I was like, this is absolutely it. It's not like you don't need to build other things on top of that. But if you don't have that self-awareness, then how do you possibly manage and navigate everything else that's going to come your way when you're running a business? When I'm building out any kind of program for founders, learning environments, that kind of thing, it's always that self-awareness piece that I think is the most important. And I think that's why actually kind of one-to-one mentorship, that type of thing, can be really helpful. I think that's where we can add a lot of value, is to reflect back somebody, and instead of it being somebody thinking, oh, I'm not enough, or am I doing this wrong, or am I to reflect back, no, well, this is who you are, so what does that mean in terms of how you navigate the business? I think that can be a really powerful tool for people.
Yeah, I think as entrepreneurs, we face so much uncertainty. So I think the more certainty you can have about yourself, then the better position you're going to be in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a really good thing for people to take away today. Just a little bit of self-awareness, self-reflection, and where are you going to build on from there. So Ollie, what's coming up next? Can you tell us?
So we're going to be back with our live podcast, The Grounding. So these are solo episodes between Becky and myself. Sometimes we invite along a different person to come along and speak. It doesn't necessarily have to be a founder. So in a past episode, we had the managing director of Swig, who came along and gave a chat about the world of finance and startups. So yeah, stay tuned for our solo episode.
And of course, they stream on both YouTube and on LinkedIn, and the videos are up on YouTube afterwards as well. So if you do want to go and check them out, that's Founded and Grounded. Very easy for you to find. If you're a visual listener and you want to see our faces whilst we're talking as well, then yeah, you can find that over on YouTube. So thank you everyone for listening. If you like what you've heard, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and don't forget, there's a massive selection of previous episodes. Just search Founded and Grounded on your favorite podcast player.